Hello friends, welcome to this video. In this video, I am going to discuss on a very important concept under GST law. The concept is very important not because of the complexity of the provisions. This concept is important because the entire GST law is working for this purpose. The entire department of GST and the officers of GST is working towards this purpose. What is that purpose? The purpose is that it is on the payment of taxes, because the GST Act or the GST department is working towards collection of taxes. The collection of taxes will happen only if the registered taxpayers pay their taxes properly. So in our today's video, I am going to discuss on the provisions relating to payment of taxes under GST law. The concept of payment of taxes is provided under section 49 of the CGST Act 2017, and as we already discussed, the relevant sections are also available in the respective state GST Acts as well as Union Territory GST Acts. Okay, let us first discuss on some of the basics of payment of taxes. Taxes under GST can be divided into three categories, major of three categories, which is central GST, second one is state GST or a union territory GST, the third one is the integrated GST. So the taxes also paid for each and every act separately. You call it as central tax, state tax or a union territory tax, and the third part is called as an integrated taxes. So these are all the three types of taxes which a taxpayer will have to pay, depends on the transactions they do and the circumstances of transactions as well. Okay, so under GST, what are all the nature or kinds of taxes or the tax liability arises? The first type, a very broadly used type of taxes or the liability of taxes arises due to supply of due to the outward supply of goods or services. Whenever any tax person supplies outward supplies any goods or services, immediately the tax liability arises if he is a registered taxpayer under GST. So whatever the outward supply a taxpayer has done during the tax period, you will have to calculate taxes on that, and that taxes has to be paid. That is the first nature of liability. Second nature of liability is that for certain types of inward supplies, the tax has to be paid by the recipient. We have already called that type of transaction as transaction on which tax has to be paid on RCM basis, reverse charge mechanism basis. So a taxpayer, over and above the tax liability on his outward supply, he has also to pay taxes on his certain inward supplies. I am just using the term here as certain inward supplies. We have already discussed about what are all the type of transactions for which reverse charge mechanism will be applicable. So that is the second nature of liability. What is the third nature of liability? Third nature of liability can be called as liability towards TCS. We have just discussed on a video already. We have a video on concept of TCS under GST. If a taxpayer is liable to collect taxes as per TCS provisions, that is section 52 of CGST Act, if he is liable to collect taxes, then that will be added to his tax liability for the period. That is the third nature of tax liability, though it is not applicable for every taxpayer. As of now, TCS is applicable only for an e-commerce operator, so that we have already discussed. So that is the third nature of tax liability. Then the fourth type of tax liability can be on the liability of TDS. That is also we have discussed in detail what is when the TDS will be applicable, on what amount TDS has to be deducted, and for whom the TDS will be applicable. All these provisions have already been discussed in a separate video. So TDS can be called as a fourth type of nature of tax liability. So these are all the four major cases when a person has to pay taxes under GST law. Next, what we are going to discuss is, see, this GST law, unlike any other tax laws, GST portal, that is the common portal of GST, is as similar to your internet banking of a bank. So that is how they have designed the entire GST portal. I will just tell you some of the similarities between your internet banking as well as your GST portal. In your internet banking, you have different types of accounts. One account can be your savings account, current account, loan account. So these every account, I am for this discussion purpose, I call it as a ledger. Account is nothing but a ledger. If you have a savings account with a bank, then what will happen? Whatever the amount you deposit, that will be captured there, that will be visible there, and whatever the amount if someone else deposits on behalf of you, that can also be captured in your account statement. So similar to that, even in GST law, they have tried to design their portal in such a way that the portal offers you with three ledgers. There are three ledgers offered by the portal. The three ledgers can be called as, the first type of ledger is called as electronic cash ledger, the second type is electronic credit ledger, and the third type is electronic liability ledger. So we'll understand one by one what is the purpose of each ledger. Electronic cash ledger is for the purpose of paying any taxes, duties, penalties, any fees, etc. under the GST Act. Whatever the nature of amount payable under GST law, it can be paid by using electronic cash ledger. How electronic cash ledger works? If at all you have to pay any taxes or any amount of duty under the GST law, you can first pay to the electronic cash ledger. Electronic cash ledger acts like a savings bank account in your GST portal. So once the amount you have paid, it will be deposited to your electronic cash ledger, and in future, if the amount is matched with your return, if the amount of taxes or duties, if it is payable from your return, it will be matched and the amount will be deducted from your electronic cash ledger. That is how electronic cash ledger works under GST. The second type of ledger is before that, I just wanted to also tell you what is the payment mode. What could be the payment mode for payment of in electronic cash ledger? The different types of payments mode are, one is that it can be paid through internet banking. Second one is it can be paid through over the counter challan. You can as similar to going to a bank and depositing your cash, you can go to the bank by using your you can generate a challan. See, for depositing in your savings bank account, you need a bank challan, but for depositing for GST, that is depositing in your electronic cash ledger, you need a GST challan. GST challan can be generated from your GST common portal. GST common portal is nothing but gst.gov.in. You will have to log in with your user ID and password provided by when you have registered. Some user ID and password would be provided to the taxpayer. Using that user ID and password, he can log into the portal, okay, and generate a challan for payment of taxes. Take that challan to your bank's counter, pay through that challan, and that amount will be directly credited to your electronic cash ledger. That is one method of paying. Second method of paying is through your internet banking. Internet banking, I can divide that into two. One is you can pay from your internet banking through NEFT or RTGS, that is online transfer mode. Second one is you can pay through your debit card or a credit card. That is the second method of payment. So whatever the method of payment you adopt or you use it will end up in amount getting being available in your electronic cash ledger. You can have that amount in ledger for any number of time. Whenever you are filing any return, and if any tax liability arises in your electronic liability ledger, then that liability ledger will be paid from your electronic cash ledger. We will understand what is electronic liability ledger later. So next type of ledger is electronic credit ledger. Electronic credit ledger is nothing but if some other taxpayer deposits tax on your behalf. If some other taxpayer deposits tax on your behalf, then that will be visible in your electronic credit ledger. What is that? For example, if I purchase certain goods, then the supplier of those goods will charge GST in his invoice. So that GST I will pay to the supplier, and that supplier will collect GST from me, and it will be paid to the department. So whatever the amount of GST paid by supplier, it will be passed on, the credit of that amount will be passed on to the recipient, that is in this case it is me. So it will be passed on to me, and that amount will be reflecting in your electronic credit ledger. So whatever the amount of input tax credit that will be eligible, that will be available in your electronic credit ledger. As of now, in the current scenario, how the amount will be lodged in your electronic credit ledger is by filing a return and declaring the amount of ITC, which is on self-assessment basis. You have to declare an ITC in your return on a self-assessment basis, and that ITC will be available in your electronic credit ledger. See what is ITC, how the ITC will be arrived, how it will be filed, and there is a separate form under GST which is called as GSTR 2A, which gives you the amount of eligible ITC for you. On that, how the eligible ITC can be taken to your electronic credit ledger, all those aspects we have already discussed in our video on input tax credit. If you have missed the input tax credit video, the link is provided in the card above. Okay, clear? So electronic credit ledger can be accessed by filing a return and declaring your input tax credit on self-assessment basis. Okay, that is second type of ledger. Third type of ledger is nothing but electronic liability ledger. This ledger will provide you with all the types of liabilities under GST. All liabilities including tax liability, interest liability, penalty liability, or any fee liability, cess liability. So whatever the liability of taxes or duties under the GST Act, all those liabilities will be projected in your electronic liability ledger. How the amount is getting populated in electronic liability ledger is nothing but on filing of the returns. Whenever if you file any returns, and you will be declaring your output tax liability in that, and that output tax liability will be projected in your electronic liability ledger. That liability ledger can be paid off by using either electronic cash ledger or electronic credit ledger, depends on the conditions and satisfying the conditions of payment. Okay, this is all about ledgers or available in your GST portal. Okay, after we discuss this, now we are going to discuss a very important concept, which is nothing but manner of utilization of input tax credit. See, I have already discussed that there are various types of taxes which is dealt under GST law. GST law is not a single act. It comprises of 4 or 5 acts which we have already discussed before, and which also has 3 or 4 types of tax payments included in that. Now what we are going to discuss is how the input tax credit available under each act can be utilized for payment of your output tax liability, because the act itself provides that the manner of utilization of input tax credit for the payment of for the set off of your output tax liability. That is this manner of utilization is actually provided in your section 49 subsection 5. Subsection 5 says how the ITC can be utilized for payment of your output tax liability. I have provided a table here. This table is an updated table as on date, because from the implementation of GST law till date there were so many itineraries of changes in this particular provisions. They have given so many circulars, they have they have given you some rules under this, and they have issued certain circulars as well. So there are so many iterations for this provisions. Whatever the table I have provided now, this table is the latest available provisions relating to manner of utilization of ITC. Let us understand the table now. In the table, the first column I have provided the nature of ITC, whatever the nature of ITC available with you, and the next 4 columns is regarding your output tax liability under each act. We will understand this, and you should remember this table as well for determining the manner of utilization of ITC. Okay, I have given the sequence of utilization in the numerical number, so you will have to follow this numerical number for determining how how the utilization of ITC can happen. The first nature of input tax credit available with us is IGST. Towards we have a input tax credit of IGST. How the input tax credit of IGST can be utilized for your output tax liability? First, whatever the ITC available under IGST, that has to be first utilized for payment of your IGST output tax liability. First, it has to be exhausted for payment of ITC output tax liability, IGST output tax liability. Once your IGST liability is completely set off, then if there is any excess ITC available towards IGST, that can be utilized for setting off of your CGST, SGST or UTJST liability. How the manner, what is the sequence of set off under these 3 acts? It can be set off in any proportion. Okay, previously when the act was initially enacted, that time they have provided with a sequence that it has to be the balance ITC on IGST can be first utilized towards payment of CGST, then SGST. Like that they have provided a sequence, but now they have given the option to the user itself. The user can determine how the balance amount of ITC towards IGST can be utilized for set off of CGST or SGST. Clear or not? That proportion is provided, but this payment or this set off can happen only after setting off your IGST liability. That is very clear. That is why I have provided as number 2. The second nature of ITC I have is CGST ITC. If I have an ITC in the nature of CGST, then that ITC can be utilized for payment of IGST as well as CGST, but an ITC from CGST cannot be used for setting off of SGST. CGST and SGST setting off is not possible. So only IGST and CGST can be set off. In that, first you can use that credit of CGST for setting off of your CGST liability. Then balance, if any, can be used for setting off your IGST liability. But I have given one note here which says that if at all you have to go for your next nature of liability, which is CGST liability, before that you should have to completely exhaust your IGST liability, because IGST input ITC is available for set off of any type of taxes. That is the reason first you have to completely exhaust your ITC on IGST before you go to any other tax laws. So CGST, the first set off can happen on CGST output, second set off can happen on IGST output, SGST output not permitted. Third, SGST liability. SGST liability similar to CGST, it can be first utilized for setting off your SGST output, then on IGST output. CGST output not permitted, UTGST output not permitted. Third, next one is UTGST. On UTGST, first you can use similar to all other CGST or SGST. You can first utilize for your UTGST output, then you can utilize for your IGST output, but you cannot utilize for SGST or CGST output. Clear or not? So you just remember the table in this sequence and the numbers I have mentioned in this sequence for your setting off your ITC and the manner of utilization of credit. Okay, and I just would like to quote the relevant section for this. section 49 subsection 5 to be precise, it provides you with the input tax credit and in what series or in what sequence the ITC can be utilized. That is what provided under section 49. Then there is something some new section called section 49A, which is inserted by way of a CGST Amendment Act 2018. So section 49A says credit of CGST, SGST or UTGST can be utilized only after ITC on IGST has been completely utilized. It is completely exhausted. We have just discussed that. So that is provided under section 49 capital A. Okay, so we have just discussed all these manner of utilization provisions. Let us now discuss a problem under that. So one problem I have here is Mrs. X Limited being a registered person supplying taxable goods in the following manner. X Limited is a registered taxpayer under GST, and the taxable supplies or the supplies he has made during the tax period is provided as follows. He has done intrastate supply of goods, interstate supply of goods, as well as intrastate purchases he have done, interstate purchases have done. So he is exposed to all types of taxes like CGST, SGST and IGST. And they have provided the opening balance of CGST, SGST and ITGST available in his electronic credit ledger. Whatever the balance of electronic credit ledger at the opening of the tax period is provided here. What we have to they have provided some additional notes which says rate of CGST, SGST and ITGST to be 9%, 9% and 18%, which is nothing but the rates of taxes applicable on his in purchases as well as outward supply. Inward and outward supplies are exclusive of taxes. Whatever the values provided here are exclusive of taxes. So you will have to calculate on this entire value. All the conditions necessary for availing the input tax credit have been fulfilled. This is just an assumption. They are providing you with an information that whatever the conditions for availing ITC is completely fulfilled. So now we have to compute the net GST payable by X Limited for the tax period. Okay, so let us start solving this problem. Step 1 is nothing but calculation of total available ITC for the tax period. For this calculation, what you have to do, you have to first take your opening balance and then calculate ITC on all your inward supply, which is purchases. Calculate ITC on that inward supplies, then you add both, you will get the total value of supplies. Here opening balance of CGST, SGST, ITGST you have to segregate, you have to separately calculate for each and every loss. So opening balance is provided, ITC for the month is also provided here, calculated and provided here, and the total ITC is 2,47,000, 2,47,000, 1,97,000 under GST, IGST. That is how the calculation of available ITC is done for the period. Second, step number 2 is now you have to calculate the net amount of tax payable, if any, for the current period after setting off your input tax liability. Okay, total output tax on your outward supplies are 1,62,000, 1,62,000 and 2,34,000 CGST, SGST and IGST. This is what my columns. After you determine the total output tax liability, first you have to set off your input tax credit available. So as I told you, 2,34,000 is the total output tax liability on IGST and the available input is 1,97,000. So entirely it will be exhausted there. So I am just writing off the total available ITC from the output tax liability. After adjusting the ITC, I have a balance credit available in CGST and SGST, but IGST it is completely exhausted. There is a payable of 37,000. IGST credit can be utilized for CGST and SGST in the payment of IGST. Liability towards IGST can be made by either CGST or SGST. So I am making from CGST here, which is 37,000 and 48,000. The balance available ITC after the payment is provided at the end of the problem. So this is how the problem is solved now. After the problem is over, let me go to this other provisions. I am just going to discuss some other provisions. Other provisions are any balance. Just now we have discussed about payment of taxes, manner of utilization of ITC. Okay, after you have utilized your available ITC in your electronic credit ledger, if there is any balance, after utilizing for your output tax liability, that balance is available as refund for you. It can be provided as refund, but provided you will have to satisfy the provisions relating to claiming of refund, but otherwise it is available for refund after setting off of your available input tax credits. Clear or not? Next provision we are going to discuss is how the discharge of tax liability can happen. Even the manner of discharge of tax liability is also provided in the act itself. The section itself provides for manner of discharge. The section says that whatever the total tax liability available with you, you will have to discharge the total tax liability in the following sequence. First, you will have to discharge the self-assessed tax in your return towards your previous tax periods. You are in today's current tax period. Whatever the balance of tax payments or the liabilities towards returns and the tax liabilities arised due to self-assessment of taxes in your returns of previous periods, that has to be first discharged. After discharging that, you have to discharge the tax liability on self-assessment basis by filing a return of the current tax period, and that tax liability has to be discharged in the second after you discharging the previous period. That is the second period you will have discharge you will have to do on the current period tax liability. Then whatever, if there is any other liability towards interest penalty or whatever, after the tax liabilities have been completely exhausted or discharged, if there are any other liability under the act, interest, penalty, fees, etc., that has to be discharged after discharging the all other tax liabilities. That is how the discharge of liability can happen under GST law. Next one is incidence of taxes. Incidence of taxes is deemed to be passed on to the recipient if full taxes are paid. For example, if the supplier has collected the taxes from the recipient of supply, and if he has paid to the government duly, and he has filed his returns also, it is deemed that the incidence of taxes or the credit of that taxes is passed on to the recipient. That is what provided under the section here. It is deemed that the incidence of tax or the liability or the credit toward the tax is passed on to the recipient. Next one is, what is the date of deposit of cash? What is the date that it is deemed that the cash deposit has been happened? It is provided that date of deposit is in cash ledger is deemed to be the date of credit in government account. For example, for any tax liability, if you have deposited your taxes in your electronic cash ledger, for example, if you have deposited your taxes under electronic cash ledger, not credit ledger, then it is deemed that on that same day your taxes have been paid off. Clear or not? When the day you have deposited in your electronic cash ledger, it is the day your liability or the amount of taxes is deemed to be paid to the government account. Okay, it is clearly provided in the section. Now we will just briefly discuss certain amendments under CGST Acts, which is from CGST Act 2018 and CGST Act 2019. In these two acts, there was certain amendments under this topic. First amendment is section 49A, which we have already discussed under manner of utilization of IGST. So which we have already discussed under 49A, amended through CGST Amendment Act 2018. Also, CGST Amendment Act 2018 has inserted another section, which is section 49 capital B, which says that this section empowers the government to prescribe manner of utilization of ITC. Because under this section only, the government is empowered to prescribe the manner of utilization of ITC. Okay, because of this power provided under the act, government has issued a new rule number 88 capital A. They have issued by way of a notification. That rule provides you with the manner of utilization of ITC. Based on that rule only, we have discussed that table. I have drafted a table, right? So that table was drafted based on rule number 88A. Okay, Next section is section 49 subsection 10 and section 49 subsection 11. These two subsections have been inserted by CGST Amendment Act 2019. Okay, these two subsections deals with transfers between cash ledgers in common portal. Okay, in common portal your cash ledger can be further divided into two categories. One is cash ledger towards major heads and cash ledger towards minor heads. Major heads are nothing but your CGST, SGST and UTGST, IGST are called as major heads, and your interest, penalty, fees, etc. are called as your minor heads. If at all you are transferring any available amount in your cash ledger of minor heads to your major heads, it is called as the amount is refunded from that minor heads, that is deemed, that is as per provided under this subsections. And for example, if you have transferred any available amount in your interest ledger, interest portion of your minor heads ledger, if you are transferring from your interest portion to any CGST or SGST portion, it is deemed that the amount of interest available in your cash ledger is refunded to you, as well as it is deemed that the amount which is deposited into your major heads, that is deemed to be deposited in by cash. That is what provided under subsection 10 and subsection 11. Okay, after we discussed about payment of taxes, let us now discuss about interest on delayed payment of taxes. If the taxes are paid delayed, then there is an interest charged by the government, that is by the tax laws. Interest, under GST law, the types of default can be divided into two categories. Types of default of payment of taxes, or default, if you have to be considered as a default, then it can be divided into two categories. One is delayed payment of taxes, second one is excess utilization of ITC. In both scenarios you are considered as a person in default. So delayed payment of tax, if you have an output tax liability and the tax is payable on that, and if you are not paying on the due date, and if you are delaying your payment of taxes, then you will have to be charged an interest at the rate of 18% per annum. It is notified by the government, and notified percentage is 18% per annum. What is the date for period of calculation of this interest? It says that the interest shall be calculated from the next day of your due date till the date of payment. If your due date is today, your interest will get calculated from tomorrow if you have not paid your taxes today, and it will be calculated from tomorrow till the date of your actual payment. Your interest will be calculated at the rate of 18%. If you have claimed excess ITC, for example, you are eligible for only certain amount of ITC, and if in your returns you have claimed more amount as your ITC, more than your eligible amount, then you are liable to pay an interest for that excess claim at the rate of 24% per annum, because this is seen as a serious offense, because you cannot claim more ITC than what you are eligible for. So if you are claiming excess ITC, it is seen as a serious offense, more serious offense under GST law. That is the reason the interest under this violation is provided at the more percentage. So that is the reason the interest rate for excess claim of ITC is 24% per annum. Okay, so what we are going to now discuss is, we will discuss certain important case laws under this interest, which revolves under this interest as well as payment of taxes portion. Okay, these case laws, I would just want to tell you that these case laws have not been pronounced in the act under GST Act. As GST Act is a very new act, there are no much case laws under GST Act, but these case laws have been pronounced under the erstwhile act, which is Service Tax Act, or a VAT Act, which is an Indirect Taxes Act. So these case laws are actually also relevant for the GST Act. That is the reason we are going to discuss these case laws now. First case law is on G1 Diesels and Electricals Limited versus Commissioner of Central Excise, and the judgment was pronounced by Chennai Sestat. What is the judgment? What is the major portion of this judgment? The judgment says that if there is interest for your violation, if interest for your delayed payment of taxes can be calculated only at the interest rates in force for the period of delay only. Whatever the period of delay, whatever the interest rate at that time notified, that is the rate you will have to calculate. You should not adopt the rate on which is available during the time of assessment. Okay, that is what provided under this case law. Next case law is BPL Mobile, which is provided by SESTAT. It says that interest for a period of delay only and not for whole month. For example, if your period of delay is only 10 days, you should calculate interest at the rate of applicable percentage only for the 10 days. You should not calculate for the entire month. Next one is next case law is by Toyota Kirloskar Motors. It is a Supreme Court case law. It says that interest if payable, even taxes are paid before issue of show cause notice. For example, if the show cause notice has not been issued, even also you will have to pay your interest. Interest liability does not vest with your issuance of show cause notice. It is an automatic. Next case law is Gujarat Narmada Fertilizers Company. Okay, in this case law, it says that no interest is payable if taxes are paid voluntarily, even if the demand is time bar. If the taxes are paid voluntarily by the taxpayer, then you need not pay any interest for that, because there is no liability, but the taxes are paid voluntarily by the taxpayer. So that is what provided by under this case law, okay, by Gujarat High Court. So the next case law is General Manager of Telecom. Okay, in this case law it says that no interest in case of delay payment of taxes by any government department. If any government department has delayed payment of its taxes, then this court says that there is no interest liability for that. Why? Because it is nothing but what is payment of taxes? It is payment of taxes to the government account. It will be going to a government account. If the government department has not paid taxes, it means that the amount has not gone from one government account to another government account. So there is no much loss for the government here. That is the reason they have provided that interest is not payable if there is a violation by a government department. So these are all some important case laws under interest on delayed payment of taxes. So next concept we are going to discuss now is refund of taxes. I already told you that after you set off your input tax credit, as well as after you have paid your tax liability, if there are any excess amount which can be claimed as a refund. So I'm just giving you, there can be two types of refund arising under the GST law. Two major types of refund. One type of refund is if you have made any zero rated supply. If you have made any zero rated supply by paying taxes, then what will happen? You can claim the taxes paid on that supply as a refund. I will give you an example. If a person has supplied goods within India, it bears certain tax rates. For example, if the goods are bearing an 18% tax rates, if the same goods are exported outside India, it is considered as a zero rated supply. If goods are exported outside India, it is considered as zero rated supply. But if you will have to pay taxes, you will have to first pay taxes. Then after you establish that you have exported the goods by producing certain export documents, then you can claim the taxes you have paid as a refund. That is one type of refund under GST law. Second type of refund is if you are if your output tax liability is completely zero rated, you do not have any tax liability at all your output tax liability are zero rated, then whatever the amount of input tax credit available in your electronic credit ledger, that is eligible for refund. If your output tax liability is a exempted supply, then you are not eligible for refund, which we have already discussed under ITC chapter. But here, if your output tax liability is a zero rated supply, then you are eligible for a refund of your amount available in the electronic credit ledger, that is amount of ITC. Refund of taxes paid can be claimed within 2 years from the relevant date. The basic provision relating to when the refund can claim, the act says that the refund of taxes can be claimed within 2 years from the relevant date. That is what the provision says. 2 years is clear, but what we have to understand now is what is called as relevant date. We will understand that in detail in our next slide. So it can be claimed within 2 years. It says within 2 years. It is not up to 2 years. It is within 2 years. So it is within 2 years from the relevant date. So the next, it also says that refund of accumulated balance of ITC is not allowed in the following scenarios. I told you that refund of taxes can be claimed in 2 scenarios. One is if you are doing any zero rated supply. Second one is if you have any accumulated ITC balance which cannot be utilized. So that is also available as refund. If refund of accumulated ITC is not available in the following scenarios. One is zero rated supplies are made without payment of taxes. If the zero rated supplies are made without payment of taxes, then you cannot claim your ITC. Second one is if there is a differential rates of taxes. What is differential rate of taxes? For example, your input taxes are liable for a rate at the rate of 18%, and if your output supply is liable for a tax rate of 5%, then what will happen? You will incur 18%, you will pay 18% on your inward supply, and you will your liability on your outward supply is only 5%. Then there is a differential in rate. What will happen? Automatically your input tax credit will be built up. You cannot utilize that input tax credit. That is the reason that input tax credit cannot be claimed as refund except for the outward supply of certain goods that is already notified by the government of India. If the government have notified your outward supply, then if you are into that supply, if you are that type of supplier, then you can claim that excess differential amount of taxes, but otherwise you are not eligible to claim the differential rate of taxes. Third one is if export duty paid on goods exported. If the goods exported and if you have paid export duty on that, then you are not eligible to claim ITC. Next scenario is any claim of duty drawback is made. For certain exports, the government is providing an incentive by way of duty drawback. If you have claimed a duty drawback on certain exports, then you are not eligible to claim ITC, claim back your ITC amount. Okay, so what we are now going to discuss is what is relevant date. There are so many scenarios which the relevant date can be determined. Okay, so we will discuss each and every scenario now. The first scenario is export of goods. If you have done export of goods, what is the relevant date? Because relevant date is important for determining the 2 years, calculation of that 2 years within which you have to claim your refund. You have to apply for your refund. Okay, that 2 years starts from your relevant date. Now we have to understand what is relevant date. For export of goods, the relevant date is if the goods are exported through sea route. If the goods are exported by ship, then the date of ship leaving the port of India, that is called as a relevant date. When the ship leaves the port of India, that is the relevant date. From there 2 years has to be calculated. Similarly, if the goods are exported by land route, if the goods are exported through land route, then the date when the goods are passing the customs frontier is nothing but the customs border of India. If the date it crosses the customs border, that is the date is called as relevant date here. Then the third type is if the goods are dispatched through postal or courier. If the goods are dispatched through courier, then the date of dispatch is called as relevant date here. Okay, the next type of transaction is export of services. If you have done export of services, then there are 2 relevant dates here. One, if you have received a payment after the invoice date. If your payment date is after invoice date, then the date of receipt of payment is your relevant date. If you have received payment before invoice date, before issuing an invoice, that is advance payment receipt, then the relevant date is date of invoice. Next type of transaction is deemed exports. We have already discussed what is called as deemed exports. In case of deemed exports, the relevant date is date of furnishing of your return for the tax period. Next type of transaction is based on an order or a judgment. If a refund has arisen based on an order of court or any judgment of law, then what is the relevant date here is date of communication of the order. The date when the order is communicated to the taxpayer, on that date is called as a relevant date here. So the next type of transaction is refund of unutilized ITC. If you are claiming a refund of unutilized input tax credit, then the relevant date here is end of financial year in which the input tax credit is recognized in your books, or when the input tax credit has arisen. From that, the relevant financial year, end of relevant financial year is called as the relevant date. Next type of transaction is taxes paid provisionally. If the taxes are paid provisionally means if you have if there is any pending assessment and the tax authorities have raised a demand notice on a provisional demand notice, if they have raised, it means that the assessment is pending complete, but on a provisional basis you will have to pay taxes. In that case, if the taxes are paid in that manner, then after the final assessment has done, if there is any excess amount of payment has already been made, that can be refunded. On that case, what is the relevant date? Date of adjustment after final assessment. After the final assessment is over, whatever the amount you have paid on provisional basis, that will be adjusted on that assessment. If there is any excess, that will be refunded. Next type of transaction is other than a supplier. For example, you have paid as a recipient. If you have paid taxes under RCM basis and later point of time it is not, you are liable for refund, you are eligible for refund of that taxes, then date of receipt of goods is the relevant date here. The date when you have received the goods, the tax liability also arises on that date, and the relevant date for claiming the refund is also starting from that date. The last concept is nothing but it is on any other mode. We have seen so many other scenarios. This is a residual scenario. In this residual scenario, what is the relevant date? The date of payment of taxes. The date when you have made tax payment, from that date you have to claim the refund within 2 years. Okay, this is what all about refund of taxes. Let us now quickly discuss on interest on refund of taxes. Interest on refund of taxes can be provided under 3 sections. First section is section 54 subsection 12. This section says if the refund is withheld for any appeal proceedings, there is some appeal proceedings pending on the taxpayer, and any refund is withheld just for the completion of the appeal proceedings, and later point of time the appeal proceedings are over and there is no tax liability arise during that appeal proceedings, then the amount of refund withheld is liable to be paid back. So that for that payment the department has to pay an interest at the rate of 6% has to be paid. So second type of provision is section 56. Under section 56, if the refund is not provided within 60 days from the date of refund application, I just told you that refund application has to be made within 2 years from the relevant date. We have just understood what is relevant date. Within 2 years we will have to claim your refund. The moment you lodge your refund application, the moment you have applied for your refund, from that date within 60 days the authorities has to pay you the refund amount. If they have not paid you the refund amount within 60 days from the date of application, you should be very clear here, it should be from the date of application, then they are liable to pay an interest at the rate of 6%. The 6% is per annum. Clear or not? So the next type of refund is proviso to under section 56. Proviso under section 56, there is one type of refund. This refund is nothing but if there is a order. If I just told you that if the refund is arisen based on some adjudicating order or any judgment of any courts, and after receiving the order you will have to immediately file an application for refund. And similarly, if you have filed the application and there is no, if the department has to pay the amount, refund amount within 60 days. Here in this case the amount of refund payable is very clear because it is already provided by the court of law. So the department has to automatically pay within 60 days. If the department has not paid within 60 days from the date of application, here also from the date of application, then interest has to be paid at the rate of 9%. See, previously 60 days when you are applying, if you are applying and the department delays it, they are only asking the department to pay only 6%, because it could be some legible reason. But if the refund has arisen due to a judgment of a court, it means the department does not have any say here. So department has to automatically oblige the judgment of the court. If you are not, if and for that they have, the department has, sorry, the law is providing for a 60 days time period. Even after 60 days, if the department has not obliged the decision and paid the refund, they will have to pay an higher rate of interest, which is at the rate of 9%. That is what all about interest on refunds. So with this discussion, our topic on payment of taxes is covered and it is over now. Okay, we will meet in another video for on a different topic under GST law. Clear? Thank you.